Hello, and welcome to my cellar. I hope when you go outdoors, you look something along these lines, something over your face. But since we're not together, I don't have to wear it, and you can hear me better. This is the let's see, wait a minute, let me get this right. Quasi-centennial episode, numbered episode of the Curmudgeon, number 125. Now, I got a statement of purpose to make here, I guess. Since the shelter in place and the COVID thing, I have taken to making some other videos. I did 25 children's stories that I read for people to, let their kids listen to stories. And I did about 32 of something I called Tales from the Cellar. Tales from the Cellar was never about D&D. It was about what was going on, living in lockdown, living in shelter in place, living in social distancing and isolation. If I ever once mentioned something about gaming, it must have only been very brief, because none of those things were more than 4 or 5 minutes long to begin with. So I didn't say, hey, this is D&D. I said, these are Tales from the Cellar. So I got a couple of posts that really pissed me off. Please keep this channel open for D&D talk. Please open a second channel for political topics. I come here for D&D, not politics. Well, see, darling, you came to the wrong place. Tales from the Cellar was never about D&D. Tales from the Cellar was what it was about in our COVID situation. So if you go somewhere, if you go into a store expecting ice cream and get there and find out that it's selling sugar, well, that's your misapprehension. So then I got another one. We all enjoy it when you talk about D&D. You do so with intellect and authority. When you talk politics, you're a bit uninformed on the latest goings-on and the scam that the Democratic Party pulled on Americans during the Obama era. Should be a bit more open to the facts rather than that group speak. Please stick with D&D. You have listeners. Don't push away people that know current events better than you do. This one just tickles the heck out of me. It's loaded with group speak. Talks about the mysterious scam and the Democrats and Obama and everything. Isn't it amazing when somebody says something you don't like, you get all upset? And apparently this person didn't like that. And so then, all in response to the same video, thanks for speaking the truth, Tim. So obviously you can't soothe everybody all the time, and I don't care to. I don't give a damn. If you came to Tales from the Cellar looking for something about D&D, it's not my fault. You knocked on the wrong door. I'll talk about anything I choose to talk about on any platform I choose. I keep this one rather apolitical on purpose. I try very hard to keep it apolitical. The fact that I'm encouraging people to take COVID precautions that don't correspond with other prominent individuals' recommendations, too bad. I make recommendations for what I think is a sound policy. I don't get it. Anyway, only talk about D&D. No, well, I won't always only talk about D&D. I'm 71 years old. I'm a Vietnam War veteran. I have 3 degrees. I have 2 children, 4 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren. So I think I'm qualified to talk about a whole lot of things. Oh, maybe youth sports for all the years that I coached, or youth sports for all the years that I refereed, or youth sports for the years that I was the announcer for the high school, or the years I spent in sales, or the decades I spent working with handicapped. So I think I'm qualified to talk about anything I damn well please. And if you didn't like something I had to say, all right, now, in that same vein, in one of those things, I believe it was, anyway, I made a comment on the fact that all of a sudden the two people popped up in the White House being testing positive, and somebody thought I was grinning about it. The only thing I was grinning, but not about, I don't want anybody to get the thing and die. But I do like to see the crows come home to roost when Mr. I don't need a face mask realizes all of a sudden that he's now in the crosshairs. So if I smirk, that's why. Because when the crows come home to roost, it's always a raucous time. I don't know, something about don't sell out the people who run the D&D scene now by wishing illness on death. I wasn't. I wanted the, oh, it's no big deal. It'll go away. It'll fix itself. Drink some bleach. Reality. That's what I wanted, a reality check. Okay. Back to last week about the women in magic rules that Lenny Lakovka wrote. I personally love the women in magic rules because it seems like women are a different species. Like an elf using the forces of chaos, and male lawful clerics are lame as hell, and it's up to the wenches of the world to keep it interesting. Also, the absurd humor of the lizard man murdering a partner but keeping the woman only for her to kill him and steal his stuff. So she came back to town as a true hero. I'm not sure exactly what that reference was. I must have missed that. But I'm not going to get all the distaff side of the population climbing on me again. I had that a couple of years ago. Someone pointed out that this was a female. Let me see how to find that here. She pointed out that male arm muscle mass is 3 times that of a female muscle mass on her sword arm. And someone pointed out that Red Sonja's sword arm was equal to that of Conan. No, I'm sure it wasn't. I mean, simple physics. But hey, this is all supposed to be fantasy anyway, so what's the big deal? Okay. This got a little, when I was cutting and pasting, I think I made a mistake here. All right, this is the first of your videos I watched. Great. Now I have a lot to watch during this time. I'm one of the people who's out of work, and it's nice to hear you mention this and the stress we're all under. Well, yeah, I mean, I really feel for everybody that's not able to work. I certainly am glad I'm not in that position myself. It must be terrible. Now, again, this is not a complaint. It took us till 2 days ago to get our stimulus check. Now, granted, ours had to be mailed because this year, for some reason, one of the forms we filed with the taxes couldn't be done electronically, so we had to send it in by mail. Yada, yada, yada. But for anybody else that found themselves in that thing, it's a long time coming. So if they're going to do something again, I hope they do it a little more speedily for the people that really, 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 truly need this money to keep their lives together. All right. Lenny Lakovka's goofy, politically incorrect, and sexist article about women having all sorts of seductress stats and physical strength limits. The irony of that era around 1976 was a scrawny, skinny, nerdy cartoonist by the name of Robert Crumb, happily with a burly wife, a tough gal, while while creating all sorts of cartoons with super tough Yeti women and Saskatch women. There are fringe places and purposes for that kind of fringe satire as a principle of free speech and expression to incite discussion about gender issues. So, screw the SJW snowflake idiots. Well, okay, now that's his words, not mine. But yeah, any article that prompts rational discussion is a good article. Yeah, I think it's silly to say that, Red Sonja's arm is as good as. Nah. Anyway, who cares? It's fantasy. Be as tough as you want. I don't, you can always, say, oh, I got a magical armband that makes my sword arm the same strength as a man. Whatever, who cares? It's not what it's about anyway. The strength of the arm is not what delivers the hit points. Okay, so here we go back to the, there's an individual made a point about the muscle mass. Her point is interesting, but getting back to my favorite of your facts about OS D&D, since HP represents several factors, willpower, agility, training, skill, constitution, etc. Well, now, that's not all the ones. I didn't say all those. Then might we say that while female characters have 3 times less muscle mass than males, they should have a higher hit point, as a woman has a higher pain threshold. Perhaps a bonus to saving throws against the flu too, or maybe the male characters got to get a penalty. No, I don't like that at all. That's not what hit points are. Hit points are a generalized combination of many things, but it boils down to a hard and fast metric. That many ticks on your stick before you fail to dodge the fatal blow. It never mattered whether the fatal blow was having your Adam's apple carved out, or an axe blow to the crotch, or having your leg severed and bleeding out. That was never gone into early. Avoid the fatal blow. Yes, it's part of your strength. It's part of your constitution. It's part of your agility or dexterity, whichever one you call it. All those things factor in, which is why you get bonuses to that. They're increasing your ability to dodge the fatal blow. All right. Now, I have a question that I hope will interest you. Enchanted cloaks. If you cut them up, do the bits remain enchanted? And what is the logic behind your answer there, please? No, they shouldn't. My logic is that when an enchantment is laid on that cloak, the arcane powers, the mystical forces are woven in a net that permeates and envelops this item. There's a lattice work of energies there, if you will. Look at it as flaying your skin and looking at all your blood vessels. Just your blood vessels. Okay, there's a lattice there. If you sever that lattice, the vitality drains out. That's my rationale. So no, finding an invisible cloak, a cloak of invisibility, and then cutting it up into 40. No, I wouldn't allow that, because the spell is woven into literally the very fabric. And if you snip and break one part of the spell, the rest of the spell unravels. That would be my interpretation. My interpretation. All right. I was interested in your light enchantment idea to detect the level of mana given area, and it made me think along these lines of enchanted objects. The advantage of being able to cut would be that tailors could secure bolts of material already enchanted with the desired magical ability, and then fashion any clothing required of them. No, because what? You're going to have this lovely red and black plaid over here that's invisible, and this lovely green and yellow plaid over here that is strength. And no, I wouldn't do it. I would not do it that way. And then a follow-up, what do you say to a new class of Tailor Witch or Eldritch Seamstress? Someone to make all these invisibility clothes. No. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't have a local hedge wizard or herb woman or whatever that is of that capability of doing something like that as an NPC, producing an item that is later for sale, whatever. Certainly they could do that. You could certainly have an NPC in your campaign, in your duchy, whatever, who's known for being able to make arcane clothing like that. I think the last thing any game needs right now at this stage is more niche character types, which is going to be addressed here soon in another one. Okay, this is a long one, but it's interesting. I recently played in a homebrew module, not a campaign, but ended up 4 to 5 TPK, 80%. Okay. The DM was trying out new things. There were 5 characters: a paladin, their squire, a gnome cleric, a human druid, and my half-orc fighter. In the first encounter, we went up against a horde of super zombies, whatever that requires, or whatever that means, led by a demon-possessed evil cleric. Well, unless these 5 characters were pretty tough to begin with, I can already see where this is going. And if they didn't have a chance to run the hell away, it's like being locked in a room with a hungry tiger. The zombies were pop culture fast zombies that needed headshots to kill. I played my half-orc cautiously because I knew the DM could be murderous. As the 4th PC went down, I got the half-orc out of there and survived. The DM decided the gods of good resurrected the dead party members. I guess we could serve them, or perhaps because there would be no game otherwise, in order that everyone experienced. I guess because we now knew what not to do. The DM ruled the half-orc got fewer experience points because I didn't stick with the party, even though I only left after the penultimate PC bit the dust. I didn't argue too much, but I did say it seems to me that the point of role play was to keep your character alive and find a way forward. No one thought that was a good argument. What do you think? I think that's the perfect argument. I think it's the best argument. That's what role play is all about. Live to fight another day. See something you can't possibly beat? Feats, don't fail me now. Out of my way. You know, the old thing about you don't have to be the fastest guy in the party. When something's chasing you, you only got to be faster than the slowest guy in the party. That's something to remember. I think that's I would, from what you tell me, I think that's an unfair ruling. If you only left after the rest of them died, I think you should have gotten full experience and maybe even a bonus of 10 or 15%, simply because you did the right thing and you played that character to live. Now, I'm not saying the guy's wrong. I'm saying I think he was too harsh. That seems awfully harsh to me. After all, I always saw the DM's job as to provide you opportunities to what we call level up, but which is to go forward in life and make something of yourself. Why would a DM set out to make it harder unfairly? It just doesn't seem to be kosher. All right, here's a question. Are there any classes which you think are cool but not covered by the well-known classes? Alchemists, rune masters, or perhaps other neat ways of doing magic? No. I think the proliferation of classes into so many subclasses is silly. Requires way too many rules and exceptions to this and exceptions to that, and pluses here and minuses. Blah, blah, blah. I there are some besides the original fighting man, wizard, or fighting man, magic user, or cleric that I think are legit. Though I don't like them. The paladin is enough different. They are fighting man, but they have so many other restrictions. The druid is somewhere between a magic user and a cleric, depending upon your theistic beliefs. So the bard was interesting, but the original bard, you had to be a fighter, and you had to cross train. You couldn't just be running around out there with a lute, expecting to win over the world. Let's see where are we at on time here. Okay, not too bad. To be honest, there's none other than those that I can think of apparently there's none other that ever struck me as being interesting, because virtually everything is an offshoot of the basic three. How many branches in that tree do you need to go down? We didn't. If a magic user in the old days wanted to say, okay, I'm going to start studying runes. Okay. And the DM would say, okay, how much time do you want to devote to it? And they would set a monetary fee and how many weeks is going to take. And then you could study runes and become well, at least not, if not a rune master, at least a rune journeyman right off the bat. Thief, now they call it the rogue, and with the shift in perception, I guess the rogue is a better thing to call it, because a thief is just out and out on one side of the law or the other, whereas we never used them as bad guys. We had lawful neutral or neutral thieves who just were kind of hired burglars and lockpicks and safe crackers and needle detectors, what have you. I don't understand the proliferation of the many kinds of subclasses of character types. I think in many cases it was an excuse to write more rules and more books and sell more books and get more of your money, in my opinion. 3 kinds of crusaders, and you could always flip anything: paladin, anti-paladin, good wizard, bad wizard, good fighter, evil fighter. I still don't think there are that many that need to be done. And then, okay, you may have noticed my last topic of the night. Something we're all faced with now. I proudly wear my virtual Gary Con shirt. Now I can slump back down. See, you saw it. I did my events at Gary Con virtually. I did a couple of virtual things for Virtual Cobalt Con. As I announced last week, my wife and I are not hazarding our health and going to Texas for North Texas RPG Con, which grieves me deeply for family reason as well as the game reason. But I think that we're going to see a lot more virtual cons. I'm going to be running at least 3 or 4 games for North Texas, and I've offered to do a seminar panel. They're expanding their online offerings, and I'm glad to do it. I love the con. I love the guy that puts it on, Doug Ray, and I'm just so sorry I can't be there to do it in person. But then he shouldn't be there to do it in person either, because we're both immunocompromised. So anyway, I'm going to run that. And if Gamehole goes virtual, I'll run them virtually, because I'm going to start running them virtually for myself as hopefully a little bit of spare change maker. I've got the I've got the Zoom capability to do it now. I'm just figuring out how many to run in a group and how often to do it. I think I know a couple of people that have been approached for large amounts, offered large amounts of money to run a 3-hour game or whatever. And if I thought I could get that much, I would ask that, but that would be presumptuous. So it's probably going to be like $9.95 or something, like less than the cost of a movie ticket. We'll be setting that up soon. But we're in the area of virtual cons now. Let's face it. Whenever Texas decides about crowd size gathering, right now, cons as we know them are not going to happen. Now, North Texas is one of the smaller cons in terms of both attendees. Well, in terms of attendees, but not in terms of guests. Industry people were in such abundance at Texas that we all could have had our own little coterie and sat out under the tree and taught the Aristotle. we could have played Socrates and taught. So get used to the idea. And it's really not that hard. I like it because it makes you go back to the theater of the mind. I don't use Roll20 or Tabletop or any of those. And if you do, hey, that's fine, because I know lots and lots of players grew up playing in that your progress as a gamer, not your physical age, but grew up gaming with those aids, and that's how they have to play, and that's fine. Those of us that started at the very beginning didn't have any of those aids, so we had to go playing on in our minds, and so we were still capable of doing that. I think you'll find it very challenging. One of the fun things about the theater of the mind type stuff is that I can sit with a table of 7 players and describe in 300 words, 400 words, which when you count your words, you'll find are quite a lot, a cavern that you've come into. And if we were capable of taking little snapshots of what's going on in your head, I would see 7 slightly different variations of the cavern that I just described. But the beauty of this is it doesn't make any difference because we're all playing in our own caverns. Doesn't matter if your cavern is, in your mind, 8 feet taller at the ceiling than my cavern is. Doesn't matter. We're each in our cavern, each fighting or doing or contesting or searching, whatever it is we're doing. Doesn't matter. I can describe a big slobbering, whatever, and no matter how many words I use, each of you will see it differently. And that's, I think, the beauty. We don't all have to click, snap a shot and compare pictures. We all see a shambling, hairy, very threatening thing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look. If my hairy, shambling, threatening thing doesn't look like your hairy, shambling, threatening thing, it doesn't matter. In our minds, we each have a hairy, shambling, threatening thing, and that's all that matters. I don't even have to tell you he's red. And if I don't tell you any color, some people will see red, and some will see gray, and some will see white, and some will see black. And that doesn't matter either. It just doesn't matter. So I think this playing virtually will make people do that. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a very good thing. All of us as citizens are being asked to live in a strange new world, at least for a while. First responders are still out there, slaving away, slugging away. The true heroes of what's going on right now. My heart grieves for everybody that's worried about making your next grocery bill, let alone your next power bill or your next rent bill. Here in Ohio, we're slowly easing back. Today, I think you could get your hair cut, your nails done, or have a hamburger if the bar or restaurant had an outside patio. Next week, I guess there'll be, I don't know, 30-40% capacity, something like that on the indoors. We're all easing back into it. But we've seen that Zoom, for instance, can be a great venue to play games on. Discord has proven its value. Some people like Discord. I like Zoom. I have a Discord server. I set that up for one of the cons earlier in the year. In fact, that would have been Gary Con. That's what I used for Gary Con. So they all work. All you got to do is find one person that wants to spin the tail, and your group can still play, interacting with people, even if it's not touchy-feely, still face to face in this venue is good for the soul. So as we slowly unlock, I truly hope that they know what they're doing. I truly hope that we keep the curve down and flat. I don't have the really cool mask that I ordered that looks like the Sutton Hoo Viking helmet, and I hope I won't need it by the time it gets here, but I'm afraid I will. Myself, I'm going to continue wearing a mask, and whenever I go out in public. The idea that some men are rebelling about this, the masks have become a us versus them, and the idea that some men are refusing to wear masks because it makes them look unmanly. So does lying in a box. See me rubbing my face, but I haven't been out anywhere. Sneeze in your elbow, wash your hands a lot. Don't touch your face any more than you have to. Wear a mask when you go out. Take along a wipe. If you don't see them, wipe the basket just before they hand it to you. You do it. And stay safe so that we can all eventually get back to normalcy and actually press the flesh again at conventions. So stay safe. Take care of yourself. Dodada Gobi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.